Even
Hey,
though
man, you gotta say yes
it's a
first,
little
but-
preemptive. I don't know. I'm gonna take that one back.
You never know, man. Shit is crazy out here. I could be a scoundrel. You never know. You never know.
Shit, man.
But yo, also, did you have any questions about like some of the data that I sent you? I did want to like talk about some of the shit. If you know.
You know what?
As like
let's
a
get
preamble.
Let's pop it. Let's get it popping. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because I actually do want to talk to you about some of this stuff. Because, you know, I want to talk to you about what you're doing at R. You know, we don't have to get into super crazy detail, but what we can do is we can welcome our guests to the podcast. This is Real Talk Beyond the Headlines. Hashtag RTBTH anywhere. Herschel, I didn't tell you, but I updated the Twitter. It is now underscore
the underscores.
RTBTH
Oh, yeah.
underscore. So, you know, I mean, whatever you want to, you know, just hop on the conversation with us, say what you got to say, but
Chop it up.
chop it up. Herschel, but no, yeah, so we don't have to get into super crazy detail because the fans are here, the listeners are here to hear about some sports. Which is like where we came from, bro. Do you remember our first podcast? It's not even online, bro. Can't even find it online.
I don't remember it. I know it was fire. We probably had some audio issues because we were young podcasters in the game.
Bro, we was using the Samsung to record.
Oh yeah, it was bad news.
Nah, but
remember back in the day we had one mic.
I know
we had to upgrade, baby.
I remember
So
back
we
in the
out here
day
now.
when we recorded together. That's when I'll trade in the mic for that.
Pre-COVID togetherness. Yes.
But nah, the first one was greatest athlete in the world at the time. And I think Serena Williams was going on a crazy run. So she pretty much was our, you know, who we chose together. But we talked about Darrell Revis. We talked about.
I think
Probably.
Mayweather was in the conversation.
Who?
Floyd Mayweather.
Okay, yeah. I bring that up also because do you remember we had a theme that we were supposed to go with that we completely deaded, which is perfect for this conversation or the what we were going to talk about?
No.
You remember
Sports and stats? I don't.
Yes, it was supposed to be heart and stats or feelings and stats or some shit like that. I was supposed to be the numbers guy, and you were supposed to be the eye test guy.
Oh, yes.
heart.
I got you. Yes.
But the roles have completely switched because I'm the heart guy. I talk about people's feelings and shit. And you're the numbers guy. Speaking of numbers, you were talking about some data, man. Lay it on me, bro.
Listen, bro. So I do have, particular access at the CDC to some COVID numbers,
To some data.
I did have to sign a couple NDAs. They was like, yo, I'll break your fingers if you put any of this shit out. But I ain't scared of nobody. So, I had to let my homies know, particularly if they're in problematic areas. No. Just playing NSA. I know y'all listening. So, that shit was definitely secure. But I am going to talk about some of the findings, some of the shit they're looking for.
Okay.
But basically, we have these big old reports and shit that they're running literally daily and submitting out, I think 2 times a week or so to states to try to just inform them, the politicians, the higher up leadership on what they need to be doing, where resources need to be put, and who can open up, where it's quote unquote safe.
Yeah.
Some of those indicators being hospital occupancy, ICU occupancy by specifically coronavirus patients, ventilators being used by COVID patients, and just in general ventilators capacity, and PPE. They're also trying to track like staffing shortages and shit like that, but they're having a nightmare of a time doing that.
So this is just like the massive, Big Daddy COVID report.
Yes. And,
Damn,
with
tight.
any like public health response, man, you take what you can get and you try to just, improve where you can, mitigate the fucking incipient disaster. So
That's true. That's true.
It's interesting to me to see the shit and be like, I wish we could just throw a bunch of money at this problem, but shit just don't work like that.
So you're sending these out to all the sort of, I guess, like local and state officials and their organizations, their branches or whatever. Is this data like different from something that they're getting from like the NIH? You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's reporting on stuff like, Is this just another report so people can make the calculus?
So it's essentially another report. So there are a bunch of different like data sources that the nation has. The NIH is essentially just an institution, National Institution of Health, that also collects data similar to the CDC. But we basically use all types of different databases with all kinds of acronyms for all types of different shit, depending on like what actually they're measuring. And they try to put it together with rapid responses or syndromatic surveillance, which is pretty much immediate surveillance, shit that's happening right now or very recently, and trying to identify spikes in the community and shit like that. They have to come up with other systems rather than these large, grandiose surveys. And some of these surveys are things like HCUP, which is like hospital systems data. I don't remember all the fucking acronyms. Literally, there's all types of different shit. I couldn't possibly even try to remember or name them. But for this, they have a specific system where states can submit their data through this like web portal that like these Deloitte consultants, mastermind motherfuckers made on this web page.
Yeah.
The shit all comes together and it looks like this big ass web. Today we've talked about like machine learning and linear regression, shit like that, high level statistics, calculus, shit like that. What even before you do any of the math, you kind of build a model of like, where or a workflow of where data is going, what needs to be cleaned and changed and updated so it matches all the rest of the data before you can analyze it and then send it back to whoever the fuck needs that shit, right? And for this stuff, they have it down to a county level. And for particular places, they have it down to facility level. And the thing that I was actually going to mention earlier is one of the limitations is, there's a million fucking, different healthcare facilities across the country. I don't know how many exactly. Don't quote me on that million, but only like 49% are actually reporting anything.
Yeah.
Sure. In all your big counties and cities and stuff, you're going to get all the numbers, but we forget there's a lot of rural America that's just out there. And, we as healthcare, public health professionals have to decipher like, all right, so what's real? What's actually some spikes? What's going on? Where do we need boots on the ground? They used to be sending people specifically out to the areas to help the local political infrastructure and public health infrastructure to be collecting this data. And now, shit is online.
You got to do predictive modeling for those blacked out areas, so to speak. Kind of like if you were doing imputations on the missing data in a data set. Is just like every sort of county or unit of a community that you're trying to collect data from is like a data point. So
pretty much.
Yeah, that's some interesting stuff. And I kind of talked about this in one of our recent podcasts. Shout out to the podcast RTBTH. And I was saying how like gang. I was saying how like when we read reports from the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of these large media publications, they sort of discuss these issues in a conversational tone, which is how news writing should be, I guess. You have some more complicated texts, like maybe say the New Yorker, or the Economist, but no one ever talks about how you actually get to that point, which is what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you probably don't have any interface with the counties, and the different communities that are submitting data, but there's probably someone out there probably cold calling and saying, hey, how many COVID patients do you got? Like just trying to get some information. And it seems like, we're at a lack of it, man. The game keeps on changing on us, bruh.
Yes, indeed. And this is a bit of an American problem, but we're like super secretive about our healthcare data. People are just, I don't want to say they're paranoid because your employers historically have been able to use it against you, which is why when people apply for new jobs, there's always some question at the end that asks about like, oh, well, do you have a disability that you want to disclose and shit like that? Because there are laws now to where they cannot discriminate against you for having that. But at the same time, best believe they're definitely making decisions based on, your public health, your health information. If it were public, they would be making those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Herschel, let me ask you, man. So what is the impact in rural areas? I mean, we hear so much about how things went down and are going down in New York. I get some, like, people haven't really texted me a lot, but some people have sort of expressed concern for Massachusetts because they've been up there, New Jersey, big cities, LA, the Bay Area, but we don't hear much about the rural areas. If you congregate all that space, that's a lot of people, potentially thousands of COVID patients. So what's the general, perspective that you've seen based on your access?
So a trend that we've essentially identified is like these rural hospital systems can't necessarily compete with the virus in terms of space in their hospitals. I mentioned earlier some of those indicators that they're looking at, like, percentage of ICU that's filled. There are you can look at some of the maps that are created and see like, oh, these counties are like hotspots. They are 90% plus capacity of hospital beds, let alone how many of them might be COVID. Honestly, only, upwards of, number out of my ass, 20% is probably the highest that is in the hospital, because you got to remember, hospitals are doing all kinds of other shit when people are getting sick. Like, people go to the hospital for all kind of stupid shit. Mm-hmm. And another issue with these same rural hospitals is during this shutdown, there have been no elective surgeries. All that stuff that generates money for these hospitals, they are not getting, and they are fucking drowning. It's a really, really tough situation for them. In the larger, your larger urban environments, Metro Atlanta, shit like that, they are getting hit as well, but they can take the brunt of it. Specifically, Emory University, shout out to the gang, has been having many COVID patients funneled to their multiple hospital systems, or singular hospital system, but multiple hospitals across Georgia. And they do have the infrastructure to handle it here in Fulton County. But places like, Bibbs County, Macon is okay. I think Bibbs is within Macon, but that's the major city. Monroe. But on top of some of these counties that are having issues handling it, again, we're not getting data from all of them. So it's very difficult to know and understand.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be, the give and take of these issues. In the normal work that I do, when we give out I work on drug overdose prevention and shit. When we give out grant money to states, and we gave out like $200 million or some shit like this past year after, these politicians decided, oh, white people are dying from drugs, we need to throw some money at this. We give out that money, but we have particular stipulations that the states have to live up to continue to get and spend that money, whether, they're on tier 1, 2, 3, depending on how much facility reporting that they have. Like, it could be, we expect you to have 100% facilities reporting so you can get this, $250,000. Or you could be at another tier where 75% or less. And again, there are some states where I don't directly communicate with states regarding these particular matters, but there are people on my team and stuff who do. You have your problem states. There are a couple who, every week we know they're on that bullshit. And what happens is, having worked on a couple of different studies and things now, when they're on that bullshit on one particular public health thing, is across the board. Oh,
Arkansas.
I'm throwing. Yes,
Arkansas.
Well, I'm not gonna. So the next couple of names, I'm gonna just toss out there. But Pennsylvania, y'all ain't shit. West Virginia, y'all ain't shit. Florida, y'all all right.
Send your fucking data.
Send your data, man. Fucking do your job. And a thing on top of all of this that you got to realize is there are human beings. There are people on the other side of the country, the world, or wherever that are supposed to be working on this. So if there's like turnover in the job and somebody doesn't know what the fuck they're supposed to be doing, we actually had one time where a supervisor and an underling who were working together didn't get along, so they weren't sharing the data with each other. And we were like, yo, what the fuck is this bullshit? And we're the feds trying to kick the door in like, yo, we need our shit. And they're like, yeah, I don't fuck with Nancy, Karen gets on my nerves, so on some stupid shit, right? High turnover, because again, these are government jobs where most of the time people stay in them. But if there are particular positions, like for example, we collect a lot of death data, mortality data. A lot of that is really difficult for people to read into and, report on and be professional about. They get burned out. So, there may end up being a lot of turnover in specific places. And in some places, that same person might be doing that shit for 10 years and have no issue.
So it's like the data is not ever super consistent, which is just in general data collection and research. And
again, for some states, it's the exact same every time. You're good to go. Alaska, shout out to you. Hawaii, shout out to you. Washington, shout out to you. Some of y'all though, y'all on that bullshit. Georgia's okay. Georgia being here, and some of that is proximity. And I'm talking about the public health departments. I'm not talking about the higher up government. The rest of y'all can suck it. But this shit's real. At a point, you got to realize, like, in reality, we're dealing with other human beings who are flawed and make mistakes. But it does boggle my fucking mind when every single week we're getting like a totally new and different data set with different variable names and all kind of shit that it's like, yo, how the fuck did you get from last week to where, that's where we have our slowdowns and our breakdowns in communication and misinformation. Those are the problems that we run into.
It is complex, man. And, like I said, I feel like the general masses, the general public doesn't appreciate how complicated that kind of stuff is. Unfortunately, I wouldn't sell out all of our politicians, but I would say a handful of them probably don't appreciate how complicated it is to track information from the real world and put it on some spreadsheet and some report. There's a lot of uncertainty and we need time, which is very anti-coronavirus or maybe very coronavirus. We got hella time, but we don't have any time. I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, the coronavirus is really screwing up time for us. So
yeah. I don't know what day it is most of the time. Yeah. Time is fucked up.
So people think that, it's been like, we've been inside for so long, 2 months. Researchers are just like, we are literally just getting started. Like people who are, dude, 3-4 years, you're going to be gainfully employed, bro.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
For a good hot minute analyzing COVID data, bro. And then, the mental health stuff is going to be delayed. So that's going to have to be overseen and evaluated. Economics data. So, people are like stressed. People got to go to work. We've been in for 2 months, 2.5 months, 3 months, and the analysis is just getting started. We're just starting to track maybe some true patterns in this phenomenon.
You're absolutely right. But on that note, I do want to get into essentially some escapism from that. The root of this podcast. Sports? I'm talking about sports. Oh, you already know.
We were originally a sports podcast. I know I always say that, but also on the real shit, like we intended to be about sports, but we go down.
It was too much other interesting shit, man. What can we say?
You know what it was? We were overwhelmed with having to keep it real on so many topics.
That's true.
Anyway,
true. Got to keep it real.
Lay it on me, Herschel, man. I want to talk some sports.
All right, yo. So the first thing that we really have to do, and I know I've been down and just kind of having what you might consider a pessimistic viewpoint about COVID and stuff like that recently, but my goal has been for people listening, our listeners, our loyal listeners, to fucking just accept the situation that we're in. A lot of what I've seen, particularly coming from news media outlets, shit like that, has been people not talking about this like pragmatists and thinking of it like, oh yeah, well, we'll just go back to normal. These people protesting and shit, oh, just reopen the state, it'll be fine. Nah, we live in a whole different reality now. Yesterday is not the same as today. So that being said, I think it's important for us, even though, yes, in the grand scheme, sports don't matter. They're not that important. Dr. Anthony Fauci said it himself, like, yeah, we can live without it for a couple of months. We will be all right. Our sanity will not fucking explode. Although, yes, there will probably be some mental, backlash in the future. We're going to be all right for now. But for today, I want to talk about how we get this train back on the course. Because on top of because on top of like those mental health escapist opportunities that we as, observers get to have, there are so many other things that sports creates that's integral to our society and our economy, right?
Ooh, that is real,
So,
man.
yeah,
Preach.
it's real big time.
Man, I want to say something right quick, man.
Go ahead.
Because maybe you can encourage me. But I've been in a major sports funk. Like, aside from watching live sports, I used to watch a lot of the interviews and the podcasts and the radio shows, and I have not consumed any of it, man. It's just like I scroll through YouTube, and I've been pounding that YouTube lately. I told you, Herschel, but only for good things. Good things, I think. Anyway. I scroll through YouTube and I see all these they're still like these anchors and these podcasters are still releasing content. God bless them, but I cannot listen to none of it because I'm just like, what is there to talk about?
That's new. I 100% agree with you. I've stopped listening. I used to be I'm still a super loyal fucking Dan Le Batard show listener, and like as soon as the shutdown happened, I just haven't been able to find myself getting back to it. And even now, like we actually have some sports and some specific ass shit that we're going to get into and talk about today. But I've just been literally not motivated. And it's been that situation of, damn, I got all this time, but also I have no time. So shit is ridiculous.
Weird shit. But yo, Herschel, man, tell us how we're going to come back to the promised land of sports.
All right, bro. So first things first, I'm going to start the shit overseas and then I'm going to bring it back to America. The biggest thing that's happening right now, actually, you know what? I'm going to start with an American big time event. What's up?
Sorry to cut you off, but that is literally like the perfect idea.
You think so?
Dude, how much like the MLB players should just go play in the Japanese sports league. If they're playing, they should just go, they give them all like a 6-month contract and just ball out.
See, that's the thing. Yeah. So we'll get into that. We'll get into the competitiveness between these leagues, particularly in a place that's already very close together. And they've kind of gotten smacked by COVID in terms of proximity. Bundesliga, the German soccer league, is coming back this weekend.
Okay.
Now, Germany has been handling this coronavirus pandemic infinitely better than the United States. A lot of that is because they've already had, the healthcare infrastructure set up. They spend way more economically on healthcare. We as Americans spend way too much. They have many more doctors per citizen. Yes, the United States is, 200% larger, but in terms of population, we are not that much larger. I think it's 3 times as many people if Germany's got like 80,000 and America's got probably 380 million versus 300 million or so.
350 million, 365 million
now, I'm sure. Yes. But Germany has been having these conversations and their officials have deemed like, yo, we're getting back to it. Germany, their soccer league has only got 9 days of matches left. So it also benefits them that like it's not that much time left. They need to get out here, make shit happen. But they've also discussed how if they were to just scrap the season, about 56,000 people would be just straight up out of a job. And let's think about that. That's just one league. If we were to expand that out to all the other soccer leagues, particularly, and we're only talking about professional right now. When I get over to America, I got even more stats and big time numbers for you. But
hold on, is that different from? They already lost their jobs. They haven't been working. Like, what is scrapping the season? How is that so horrible?
So it's essentially a push back towards some form of normalcy. At a point, we're just going to have to accept and either all be wearing masks and figure this shit out and get sick and not get sick or not. But it's not coronavirus is not going away. Even, 6 months from now, even a year from now, you might be susceptible if you never got it. So it doesn't make sense to cancel shit literally forever. Indefinitely doesn't mean indefinitely. It means until we have more information and can reassess. So what we are seeing is Germany has reassessed and they've made the decision. La Liga, the Spanish league, has not to be outdone, like literally a day after was like, you know what? We need to set some shit up. They don't have an official date yet, but they were like, hold up. We can't lose all our fans over to them. German soccer has had issues with like TV contracts outside of the country. And they've already booked some big ass deal with BT Sports, which is a UK broadcaster, to get their shit playing and show all of their games, which, you know, not to, if you know anything about how these TV contracts work with leagues, you know, for example, the NFL, NBA, and how they hoard particularly the primetime playoff games, they are a big deal. ESPN, you know, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these contracts to be the only place where you can get it. And again, in a sports drought, all eyeballs are going to be on this league. This is a huge play, right? The same thing is going on with the Premier League in the UK. They've actually set a date of June 1st, where both the UK and the Spanish league, La Liga, have already set up small group training camps and shit like that to try to get some type of normalcy back and get some type of conditioning. We'll get to some limitations and shit about what the fuck is going on later. But the shit is fascinating, and they gotta get back on their feet.
And Herschel, man, you're talking about all eyes are going to be on this league. You know, these sports franchises and leagues and organizations are, you know, inching, you know, maybe taking some strides towards reintegrating. And as you said, whoever can really, you know, pull off something first will have a leg up, and all eyes will be on the league. So tell me, what has UFC 249 done for the UFC and MMA?
Yo, they have cemented themselves as a legitimate professional sports league. They were already up there. They've been combating, and we all know the history of the UFC, of them being kind of in the shadows and like being, oh, you know, we're kind of the dark step cousin. We're not really wrestling because there's real fighting. There's blood in the ring. You know, we historically call that shit blood sport and love it for it, and kind of feed into we as society enjoying that type of violence. But now because there's no other game in town, they got a spotlight. They actually held their event this past Saturday. I watched, the shit was dope. It was cool. It was a surreal experience because they didn't have any fans, but they still had announcers. They still had a referee. They still had coaches, and it was a lot of people. And they were in close proximity. Some people wearing masks. Some people wearing masks wrong. All kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
They actually also had a couple of fighters, one fighter specifically, who tested positive for COVID before the fight. Him and his whole squad were like, nope. Or the UFC said, nope, you can't fight. It's a wrap. You're out of here, which, of course, is what you would expect to see. Now, the issue is UFC is a singular sport. You can't do that with any of these team sports. What happens if, you know, one of your offensive linemen in football has coronavirus? Like, it's incredibly unlikely that the rest of his teammates don't have it as well. And even still, let's say you sit your first string, or you send home and quarantine your first string fucking right guard. That dude's gonna get ate up all day by fucking JJ Watt. Like, that, it can't happen. That's putting other people at risk just because, even let's say he's asymptomatic and feels fine and everything. What are you gonna do? But not to jump too far ahead. But UFC did handle the event well. Shouts out to Dana White. If he wants to sponsor a podcast, he definitely can come out here. Hey. You know, we also shout out to Joe Rogan. You know, the father of all podcasts. So, you know, it is what it is. But UFC definitely did a lot of things right. They did make a few mistakes here and there. But, you know, that's going to come with time. None of these things are going to be perfect. From an outside viewer perspective, they did a hell of a great job putting on a event. Yeah,
it worked out nicely. You know, I'm just like, I'm not a hater at all with regard to the UFC. I love the UFC, but I'm just like, man, I hope something doesn't pop off in like a week or 2 weeks. And we are just like, oh, you crazy motherfuckers. Why did you gotta do this? You know?
Exactly. That's the other thing.
But personally, I mean, I think that, you know, from what I have seen with the UFC, everything they do is typically executed like very, very nicely. And just, you know, what's crazy? It's like the industry is completely fucked. You got people like Conor McGregor throwing dollies at trucks. You know, you're not going to see that in the NBA. I'm sure fighters do all types of stuff. John Jones, man, I didn't even realize, I've been watching YouTube videos, like I said, hell, bro, everything is on YouTube. It's crazy. It's like they have got this addiction shit down to a science, man. But I didn't even realize how much shenanigans John Jones usually gets into. So the fact that they have just continued to just steer the ship in a really positive and forward direction all these years, despite all the bullshit, so they can execute, a sporting event in such dire circumstances and execute it probably damn near perfectly. And the thing that I know, another thing that really solidifies the organization is that the top 4 dudes could get coronavirus and be out for 6 months, and they still got a whole stable of excellent, exciting fighters. Like, so many fighters, like every division is just like, oh my God, who's the champ? That nigga's the nigga. He's that dude. So yeah, I mean, as you said, it's singular sport, team sports. 1 or 2 3 guys, whatever, they get the coronavirus. It could derail the shit, man. Literally, like, and then there's the women's division. 5 women, 5 men get the coronavirus, and you still have a shit ton of competitors.
Yeah, Dana White has built an incredible product. I mean, I got to give credit where it's due to that commissioner, man. Leadership in these times is huge. One thing I do want to say about the UFC fight that I found so interesting was during it, the announcers were so surreal about the situation. They were commenting on how sometimes they would have TV shots where they were within 6 feet and close together, but during the fight they had to sit on opposite sides of the ring. They recognized that like the fighters and shit could hear them talking about them and shit, oohing and on, and like, oh damn, he got smacked in the face. Oh shit. What kind of kick was that? Oh, his leg about to fall off. Oh shit. Damn, my man eyeball popped out. It was all kind of crazy shit. And then they started commenting even on the coaches talking shit to each other. Because there were no fans, no cheering, you could hear the different camps while a fight was going on, jawing at each other and shit. That was fascinating. It was like a episode of Mic'd Up without the Mic'd Up. It was really interesting. I think I still prefer the crowds, but very, very interesting to see.
Most definitely. I'm looking forward to whatever the UFC has to offer. I have to say, man, slight side note, talking about society and culture and people and humanity, slight sidetrack from the sports. But I find it very interesting that we couldn't really even go like a couple months without some sort of like combat, rip a nigga head off type action, like I hate to say it, man. Our species absolutely thrives on combat and action and destruction. Maybe that's a little bit of a morbid take on us as a people, but I just find it so interesting. Like, even though I'm sure there's been all types of combat sports happening around the world that are unsanctioned and, underground or whatever, but the first sport that comes back and probably the shortest, I guess, time period away, but the first sport that comes back is a combat blood sport.
Yeah, shit's fascinating. Just to give you some numbers on it, they had over 700,000 pay-per-view purchases on the fight, and some of that does include like ESPN Plus, which is the place where UFC is now being streamed, I guess, exclusively. But I mean, yeah, it was doing numbers. People were tuned the fuck in. I mean, we got nothing else to do. We're streaming everything. So that's big time. Even Dana White, it says here, was surprised, and it looks like the numbers essentially almost doubled from some of the previous big fights. So, wow. I mean, UFC's got their, they tapped into the zeitgeist. They know what time it is.
Yeah.
The next sport that I do want to talk about that's super big time, bro, it's 2020, man. The Olympics. Shit is crazy out here because with the Olympics, the shit only happens every 4 years. If coronavirus had happened in 2019, we might not be talking about this right now. We might be cool. We might, it might be whatever. I don't know what they would do if it was the World Cup or some shit like that. But Japan has reported that they will be having the 2020 Summer Olympics, July 23rd, 2021. So that's literally about 365 days, give or take, maybe a handful of days after when it officially was supposed to start this year, which is a move in the right direction. You know, I don't know. I really don't know what you do, because if they try to push it back any, it competes with other sports. They don't want that. There's nothing, you know, really booked for next year. The Winter Olympics are 2 years out from that. And in the winter time, obviously, the World Cup is also 2 years out from that and would directly compete. But again, doing it 1 year, they might be okay. But it also raises questions. So what y'all going to do about 2024? Is that going to be 4 years from now, or is it going to be 3 years? And all these issues with the athletes who have been training for the 2020 Olympics, they got to stay in shape for another 365 days at Olympic level. Like that ain't no game. People, you know, come up and down and have rest seasons. Like my man LeBron needs, you know, his fucking rest days. It's load management.
Yeah.
But like for all these professional athletes, what are they going to do? Particularly for people in specific. I mean, not only are younger people coming up and trying to take their spot, but Simone Biles has already said, yo, I wanted to retire after 2020. You mean to tell me I got to do a whole nother year of this? And you know, as a gymnast, her body is not is most primed to handle, you know, the moves and things that she's doing when she's younger. We're you know, it's a fact that we are more flexible. I mean, I've low key been hoping the NFL season will get pushed back a little bit so that man Tom Brady can put one more couple toes in the grave or some shit. But we all know that man is fucking immortal. So who the fuck knows?
That's a good point, man. I suppose a lot of athletes are probably grappling with that, like across the entire spectrum of ages.
Yeah.
And thinking about or going back to Simone Biles, like she's probably, I mean, obviously, most likely, if she's a gold medal winner, been doing she's been a gymnast for several years. Like retirement probably doesn't sound too bad, you know, particularly if she's reached the pinnacle and potentially she could go on and do other things with her life, like become a doctor, some shit, or write a book, you know? Yeah. So it's like you kind of, you think about these things several years in advance. Like Simone Biles probably knew she wanted to retire like 10 years ago, because she had her gymnastics career planned out so perfectly like that, or, you know, at least visualized. But it's an interesting thing that a lot of sports athletes are probably grappling with. Yeah. Aging, man. Yep. And not being able to compete.
Exactly. And speaking of ages and all ages and how sports affect us in all ages, we can bring it on home to the U.S. because I got some shit to talk about. Yo,
damn, you about to roast the U.S., bro?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but no. I think it'll be all right. So, you know, we're talking about this escapism of us watching these sports and shit, right? We haven't even mentioned the high school players who obviously feed into your college programs, into your professional shit like that. You know, we're not going to talk about Little League and shit like that right now because, again, those kids are going to be at home with their families. Like, I don't see anybody putting themselves or their kids at risk. Kids are already dirty as fuck. They don't wash their hands. You know, it is what it is. But with all of this coronavirus scare, high school sports, particularly for the fall, it's a wrap until they make some decisions, particularly for contact sports like football, where it's dangerous if you don't have team cohesion and you know, the summertime workouts and shit like that to get in shape, stay in shape, build the muscle mass to take some of those hits. That's a problem. Even still, these high schoolers are going to have to get physicals from the doctor and shit before they can participate. Not happening. I've actually looked up a couple of high school systems where they're already like, yo, we got to, you know, be more lenient on some of these rules and shit, particularly because all these kids are out of school. Maine has said, yo, we're temporarily removing the minimal academic requirements. And you already know for football, I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's like a 2.5 or some shit. So if those kids were already on the border and now they didn't have school for the last 4, 5, 6 months, and now they're not doing shit at home. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, there's probably a good handful. Unfortunately, yeah, you know, it's the world that we live in, that a lot of people probably are riddled with sort of struggling with what to do with their time when they're supposed to be in school, and, you know, possibly also food. How do they acquire food that they don't gain from school? So
And at the same time,
Point
those
taken.
kids could be using, sports for escapist purposes to get away from, potential problems at home, or even just to build fucking life skills and social skills. We haven't all, I shouldn't say it like that, but the majority of us have played on some sort of team or something like that. And it just makes you a better person. You learn some kind of lesson. You have to rely on somebody else, unless, of course, you're playing a solitary sport. And even there, the shit that you learn from, where to dig deep and try to win, and being a good loser and a good winner when you are in those positions. You learn things from that. Of course, I don't think like 1 year off of sports will kill that, but there's going to be a lot of instances where people's careers and lives just kind of fall to the wayside because during coronavirus, they got into some different shit. They decided, you know what? I actually don't like basketball that much. I like smoking weed,
man.
So it is what it is.
You know what I'm thinking of, bro? Last Chance U, man. One thing that they always sort of touch on across the seasons is like a lot of those fellas are playing football. Part of playing football for them has been like almost life sustaining,
Yes.
Like it's like the only thing really that sort of gave structure to them throughout their whole lives, depending on where they have come from. And then they're using football at Last Chance U to sort of continue using football as like that mechanism for sustaining their life, both in actuality and financially, So it's like, that's a really interesting point, and I'm thinking about Last Chance U, and I'm like, a lot of those dudes, like they said, like football saved my life, or like, that's what I do. I live football, football is the only thing I've ever had. Those sorts of comments, man. So
yeah, and not even to be myopic about it just being football, but there's people like that for literally every single sport. Serena Williams, we just spoke about it earlier, didn't get to the pedestal that she's on now by taking that shit lightly. Tennis is her life. And for, pretty much everybody, of course, tennis is a more solitary sport. You probably could do it by yourself. It's still different. There are no competitions. There are no tournaments. Like we are losing out on at least a year of spectacular athlete. I don't know. We will never know. This isn't something that's necessarily quantifiable. And in the future, we'll get back to a norm and it'll be fine. But I don't think, we should overlook that, there's going to be some loss here. But you just mentioning Last Chance U is a perfect segue into talking about how the NCAA has been talking about coronavirus. Now, we have a lot of bad things to say about the NCAA over here at Real Talk Beyond the Headlines. And today that shit is going to continue.
Man, I don't want those fools to come after us, bro.
Man, they're out here. They might. You know what? Fuck that. They got fucking federal cases on them right now. You saw Zion had actually recently come out and said that he and his family received payments from Nike and Adidas and maybe Reebok too, which is a part of the huge fucking lawsuit and scandal and fucking FBI sting operation with NCAA basketball. So you already know them niggas shiesty as fuck. So fuck them. But y'all got the feds on your back. So I am the feds now. So what's up? Pull up.
Get them, Herschel. Arrest they ass.
But all right. So in terms of like this situation and shit, right? The NCAA has kind of taken hands off, and normally they would be like, we are the most important. Even though we're not professional, we are still technically amateurism, which is also some bullshit. In this time, they've actually passed the buck on to state officials, university presidents, and shit like that to determine, what's going to happen in the fall. They have made a specific statement saying,
wait, hold on.
What's up?
Sorry to cut you off. So you're saying they're shedding the blame, or not the blame, sorry, but the responsibility of reintegrating the sport, because maybe not complete and total, responsibility for reintegration, but they're sort of like saying, hey, we don't really need to do much, because they're suggesting that their sport is not as essential, or it's not essential, and they're going to really leave it up to the states, because it is a bunch of kids,
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. And at the same time, to give not necessarily credit, their hands are a bit tied. We're in, a crazy situation. They cannot make any moves without the universities making moves.
That is a multi-billion-dollar organization. They can do whatever they want. If they wanted to have sports, they could fucking do sports.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN has been showing high school. I mean, not recently, but like they've showed high school basketball games and shit in the past. So like we know the power of TV and money and dollars, even on the high school level, let alone the NCAA level. So I don't want to hear that shit. But I'm just saying, for the purposes of this, they're allowing somebody else to make the decisions because they're not scientists. Let's be real; they don't know what the fuck is going on. That's where I'm coming from. Now, at the same time, where we talk about these state officials, we need to remember, for many, many states, not every single state, I think it doesn't break down that well, but most of the highest paid government public officials are college football coaches. These niggas are getting bread. Like, they have power. That's true, legitimate power. All because, schools and companies know that it's an industry, it's professional, and it brings in money, it brings in positivity. Ohio State is a huge university system. They do all kinds of great shit and awesome shit and amazing shit. They also make millions and millions and probably billions off that football team. Let's be real. Same thing with Alabama, who also just funnels it back into the football team. But without the University of Alabama, I would be shocked to see where that state would actually fall, because there is a lot of positive revenue that comes in and gets funneled into other programs and organizations at that school and other surrounding communities.
Wow. Herschel, that's a very interesting point. And earlier you said, getting into some of the aspects of sports that are essential just from the, basic aspect of viewing and enjoying the sport, but how they are meaningful in society. I mean, I feel like you drove it home because, if you're the second highest paid or highest paid person in the entire state, you got some clout. You know what I'm saying? Your organization is also a large economy. So, we have to be conscious of practicing proper social distancing and, following guidelines to ensure safety for as many people as possible. But it's also kind of their responsibility to find a way to get their economy going again. Every company in some way, I'm sure they're thinking about trying to get the economy going because it's essential for them and the economy in general. Like, people are hired and people work jobs, when the economy is going. So it's, they can't shirk the responsibility because, again, it's a bunch of kids, the kids have to be safe. Can't have kids out playing football if they're going to get sick, that's sort of the mentality. But, they have a responsibility to try to find a way to get the economy going. Like, people are going to watch advertising dollars, even if there's no people in the stadium, no crowds or whatever, no audience. I don't know.
Yeah. And now you're speaking my motherfucking language when we're starting to get into even the spectators of these sports as we grow up from high school, where people are watching, but high schools are not making that much money from their college football team or high school football teams, unless you're in Texas or Georgia, where the program is big time, where that's the only thing going on in that little town. We said the same about NCAA, but now I want to talk about professional sports. Now, Tune, I put you on, you put me on ages ago.
Damn right I did.
A recent episode of Real Sports with Brian Gumble. He's trying to get on that real brand, RTBTH.
We were once sponsored by HBO long ago.
Oh, yeah. But this dude was out here just bashing the NBA and other professional leagues and organizations and shit, talking shit, giving some statistics, but one thing that I do hate about news media, and again, because they're trying to tell a story, they're trying to captivate, they give a lot of worst case scenario numbers. I hate that because it's not good for making inferences and decision making. Y'all president watches shit and sees those maximum numbers or those minimum numbers and makes decisions. That's a very, very terrible way to go about things.
Yeah.
But within this particular episode, they're talking about Golden State. They're talking about some of these teams that decided not to close shit down until the very last minute when they were forced to do so. And he was like, if they had decided to not play or not play in front of fans, still play the games, carry out whatever, the take at the door, which is the gate, along with, your ticket price, along with however much money, whether it be beer or food or whatever in the stadium, they're losing, or they would make $3 million per game. So for the NBA, 42 home games, that's about, back of the napkin math, $120 million per owner, $30 billionaire owners who would just let $120 million go. Fuck no. That shit not about to happen. Now for the NBA. Yes, exactly.
They make $3 million a game?
I mean, rough estimate. And obviously for bigger games, as you get into the late season and playoffs, it's real big time. But on average, you got to think about it. Let's say 40,000 fans go into a stadium. Everybody spends $50 on a ticket, and then the $100 or I'm not trying to do this math right now, but like there are some who will buy a box and spend $10,000 in that night, and some people who will spend only $50 on their ticket and food and whatnot. But the numbers do add up to a significant amount. If anybody wants to check that stat, they can go to Real Sports and cuss out your man Brian Gumble for giving that. I am recycling that stat, but it is what it is. But so the NBA only has like 15 to 20 games left per team. Everybody's played at least 63 or so games. But the problem is, what the fuck y'all gonna do with the rest of the season? You have an issue of, because right now we're in fucking May. We're in the middle of May, would normally be the playoffs, right? What do? Just pick up where you left off? Because now you'll have a shortened off season, and your man LeBron likes load management. You can't bring people back immediately to just play high caliber, competitive, fucking playoff basketball. That's how people get injured. That's a problem. Niggas need to stretch.
Yeah,
and I mean, I don't know,
man. I think you scrap the season, man, and just give it to the Lakers. I should say give it to Bron
because of Kobe. I'd be okay with that. Be like, you know what? This was the Kobe Bryant year. We just decided not to. In the future, 50 years from now, they'd be like, yo, Kobe died, and they just canceled the season.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah. That could work. Or they could just make it like a Kobe championship, like Kobe's a champion, some shit like that. And his daughter,
prediction,
respectfully.
Yeah. And they haven't come out with any information yet. They are also going to be watching these German leagues that I talked about, because just like you said, one of the things, even for the UFC that recently had their fight, is we're not going to know who the fuck has coronavirus or passed it on until after. Yes, they tested all of these people, but we don't know the specificity and sensitivity of these tests yet.
And these are probably commercial tests that they're using. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I guess you can probably get a test, but they are probably not FDA approved if you can just cop it off of, Google. But I'm pretty sure you can get a test, and I'm sure they're using a lot of these tests. So, I'm sure there's these organizations that offer them are very solid organizations. But at this time, with regard to COVID and coronavirus, the specificity and sensitivity could be in question.
Yeah, and
the accuracy.
Again, the problem is, we just don't have enough information, because we're doing this shit like we're trying to put the fire out while we are literally on fire ourselves. That's the problem. And it's an unavoidable problem. Like, it is what it is. Eventually, we as a society will figure this shit out and be fine. But it's a problem. So to get on to the next couple leagues, MLS had just started. Them niggas played 2 games before the shutdown and have to literally call it a wrap. They're a squad that's just going to have to say, you know what, there's nothing we can do about this, and then we cannot compete with the other sports leagues that are going to be coming up in the fall. Baseball with their
wait, you saying it's a wrap for the business?
MLS? No, not for the business.
Oh,
but for the season.
Okay,
I don't know what you do. I mean, maybe you try to push it out, but again, MLS's season is so long through the summer and into like kind of late fallish. I don't know what you do.
They should go play in these European leagues, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know how these things work. Obviously, again, these negotiations, or whatever, and take a lot of time, I'm sure. But it would be cool if they could just go and be like play in the league, but not be ranked, and not participate in the championship, but they just play. And
see, that's the thing. And do you risk injury doing that? No, you're under contract. That would be a nightmare of problems.
Desperate times, desperate measures, man. Look, it's the coronavirus era. Anything goes as far as I'm concerned at this point.
Okay. Would you play for a pay cut? Let's say fucking your boy Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the highest paid athletes, who is playing in the Italian league. Perfect example. Let's fucking go. Is playing for Juventus right now. His season is a wrap. They are not bringing them niggas back. I don't care what you say. Is he
might bring him back to
risk
empty
himself
arenas
to go somewhere else? And you know what? I mean, maybe, because Italy has had seasons, or not seasons, but a lot of soccer games where they played in empty arenas before, because them niggas racist as fuck. Shout out to my man Mario Balotelli. But anyway, yeah, I mean that is an option. Yes, that could potentially be a move. But even there, that's a lot of money out the door.
Yeah.
And what at some point you have to show some kind of faith in the program that you implement and put in place the way that UFC did. They might start off with, okay, games are not going to be televised or not going to be attended by fans, and then eventually they'll work up to letting people back in. That might be a solution.
I have to say, I feel like there's something that we might not be taking into account enough, which is the fact that for some players and for some leagues, seeing in person the live sport is absolutely essential. Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, look, he is meant to be seen on playing on a field, because I've never seen him, in person, but I've seen soccer games he's played in, and it's just like the way that all of the skill weaves into the game is just immaculate, and it's just like, if it's not in a crowd, if it's not a big time event, is it going to be the same? Here, let me throw something at you, bro. We also have to take into account players, man. How many carries do you think Ezekiel Elliot is going to take seriously if it's not rocking in AT&T Stadium? Seriously, look, they could set up the season and have the whole season planned out and have the Super Bowl ready to go and the whole championship, tournament and competition. They can establish competition. Are you telling me Ezekiel Elliott is going to go out there and run the ball like the bell cow that he is?
Bro, we have data on it. Before the shit kicked off and they officially were like, yo, niggas cannot come to these games. You cannot have these sports. Your boy LeBron, King James, put words to it and was like, play without fans? For who? For what? No fans. I'm going to be at home with y'all. What you mean? Because you're absolutely, literally, those are damn near direct quotes from the king. The president is a bum, LeBron James. He did quickly change his tune and apologized and whatnot. But yes, the energy and an atmosphere from any game, let alone a big time game, every fucking football game is high intensity. You kind of need the fans. There have been US sports that have been played without fans, and they've talked about the shit being a surreal experience. It's not the same. Even the UFC fighters that just fought, some of them said yo, shit's weird. Of course, it's an individual sport. You got to get your shit done no matter what, but it's different. The shit hits different.
This is why I feel like the international competition could be interesting. If the MLB players go and play in a Japanese or a Korean league or something, I would love to see Mike Trout smash some bombs, empty arena or whatever, out the park. You know what I'm saying? Same with basketball. I probably will.
I mean, are they going to go to China? You gonna send the NBA players to China? That's what you're gonna do too?
Hey man, NBA players have a very good track record in China. Maybe not really. I mean, I think it would be interesting, to see. It would be something to tune into. To me, it would be really cool. I don't know how into it I'm going to be if there isn't an audience, a crowd or whatever.
A live audience.
Yeah. If the stadium isn't packed. Look, basketball, maybe, if they zoom the camera in and it's a little bit more intimate, maybe watching the pickup game or something. But I don't know if I can take it for real if there's an empty stadium for an NFL game.
One positive from that, we might hear more chatter, more trash talk. I'd be all in for that. But at the same time, there's nothing like being present for a game. And on that tip, oh, baby, I got more shit for you. We get to talk about the NFL. I've been so excited to talk about this. These motherfuckers have been dodging bullets like the Matrix. COVID bullets out here whizzing by. They're out here Neo. It's a good time. They got the fucking draft off without a hitch. It was virtual. Shit was weird. Niggas didn't get to boo fucking Roger Goodell, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. There were some gaffes. The Eagles are wilding. Shit is crazy out here. But we are coming up on deadlines where the NFL has to make decisions, and they have had the benefit of not being stuck in the middle of a season. They were perfectly in their offseason where people could come together or Skype together or Zoom together and come up with some ideas, some plans. And of course, also they get to watch the German league and shit. Now, I need to tell you some shit. Offseason workouts have already been scrapped. The rookie development shit has already been scrapped, which is crucial for getting some of these young players, not only, like we said, maintaining that fucking consistent, life focus that they get from football, but also just cohesiveness with the team. How are these rookie wide receivers going to know what time it is, what the fucking timing is with their quarterbacks if they don't get the reps in? Football is so much just about reps. Coming up in June, and it's not spring training, but they call it spring training. They haven't announced any openings of the facilities. I've been checking the website, but looking at like how they normally do this shit is mid-June, July-ish when they start doing shit. So they've still got time for shit to cool off. Now, the last thing though, we were talking about in-game stadiums or in-stadium viewing of games. My dad is a season ticket holder for the Falcons. Season tickets are not cheap, so they take out fucking increments because we balling, but we're not balling to where y'all can just take the whole $40,000 or $50,000, $100,000, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. I'm highballing it to for clout, But I called my dad to be like, yo, what do you think's gonna happen? My dad's a physician. He's on the front lines working on shit. Sees the COVID stuff going on. He says masks probably not helping, but it's whatever. It's not about him right now. He told me they are still cashing checks from him. They're still like taking out the money, the increments. Like, yo, we still having our season. You're gonna get your tickets.
Oh my gosh!
No word from the NFL. No word from the Atlanta Falcons being like, yo, shit's crazy. We'll keep you posted. Da 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 da. Nah, run me my money. No. That's what the fuck they said. That's what they said. Yes.
Oh, okay. Now I'm starting to see what you mean by they didn't have to make no changes and no decisions yet.
Nothing.
Oh man, the NFL's been skating, bro.
Skating like fuck. Now, on top of that, they have made one decision. They've said for the they do international games now. The NFL's trying to expand their brand out to the UK. They've done some Japan games. For the 2020 season, scrapped it. The Miami Dolphins
not even Mexico City
games. I don't know if there were any Mexico City games scheduled. The schedules for all the teams have come out now, but they scrapped the UK games. That's what I'm 100% positive about. I didn't look to see if there were because they don't do it every year.
Easy peasy, man. That's not a real.
No, it's not a real decision.
These guys probably want to play in the States anyway, or
of course
prefer not playing across overseas.
Yeah, the travel is trash on a fucking recovering body after they've been hit by a truck for 60 football.
And then
minutes.
there's the COVID. I feel like
there's COVID.
I don't know the actual facts because they are few, but I presume that having sort of like a rundown body from traveling, jet lag, playing a sport, that can make someone susceptible. If they contract.
On top of that, you got big time linemen who are fucking super heavy. I'm not saying they will have breathing problems because again, they are professional athletes. They get their cardio in. But they're bigger guys. Those are risk factors. Older, they are healthier than I would consider the majority of the population. But I mean, I would be lying if I wasn't worried for my man, Vince Wilfork. He's been out the league a couple of years now, but like that dude was still a fucking specimen. But he falls into the categories that are, concerning.
Yeah.
Shit is interesting. And even on top of that, so like, we've talked about them not having the off-season workouts and shit. How many times have we seen a football player or any fucking player from a league come back and be out of shape? Now all the gyms and shit closed. And of course, these guys are millionaires, not mostly. A lot of them are millionaires or can afford to have their own personal.
A lot of them made $1 million at one point.
Yeah. We'll say it like that. They have some means to work out. They have the drive. They have the muscles. But at the same time, shit closed. They stuck at home all the time. Where's the motivation? Everybody can't be fucking Earl Thomas. Yes, Earl Thomas out here having orgies with his brother and shit. We can't all be not social distancing like that. But everybody's making decisions out here.
A lot remains to be seen, but. Nah, NFL, they definitely have dodged these COVID bullets, man. Do the Matrix. That's what they've been doing.
Have you noticed there have been fewer NFL arrests this offseason?
I don't even believe that. I don't believe that. We just haven't heard about it, man. This is prime NFL player just ratchet bullshit. So I mean, yeah, perhaps. John Jones got tied up one time, so it's not like shit's not going down. Like niggas are still going out drinking probably. But yeah, that's interesting.
Didn't you hear about Dak having some party?
Dak?
With yeah, he had hella people over there, I think. Let me see. Hold up.
Man, there was
somebody that had a big party.
Fuck in Texas, man. If there are any Texans listening to this right now, y'all don't give a fuck. No, I'm just kidding. But it seems like a lot of the, talk of people going out and actually doing stuff has been in Texas and Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Texas.
Per TMZ, which is reputable as fuck. Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliot dinner party with dozens of pals. What quarantine? Damn. Question mark. Question mark. And they got this man on camera. Damn, and he looking out of shape. Hate to see it.
Man.
Hate to see it.
I never really knew for sure how for real TMZ is, but they did break Kobe. So
yes, I mean,
it's pretty incredible. Yeah. Like immediate. Well, it seemed like immediately. Who the fuck actually knows? But so yeah, maybe they did. They were onto something.
It's rough out here, and while we're talking about all these sports leagues and stuff, I do want to say RIP to the XFL. You had a short run. Y'all were doing the damn thing, but I mean, money talks, and it looks like coronavirus was like,
looks like y'all ain't got none
out of here. Honestly, it was probably the NFL that planted this shit.
Man,
they saw some competition and was like, nope, we can't have this. Nope.
We were toying around with conspiracy theories in the last podcast. We ain't got to go down that road again, but I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL planted coronavirus so that they could destroy the rest of the competition.
You know who it probably was for real? On some real shit? It's probably Belichick. It's like, oh, Tom Brady? Oh, you gonna leave me, huh? Oh, word? Oh, and I had to lose fucking Jimmy G? And then he lost the Super Bowl and made me look like a fool? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I got something for that. Me in North Korea. Yeah, we coming. Mm-hmm.
Bill Belichick of doing much more evil shit, so I believe it. I am on that conspiracy train. Believe it. Believe that.
Believe that. Yo, so I do have some other like life questions now that we live in the COVID era to ask you about, Tone.
Yo.
That's all I got for sports, but yeah, what do you got?
One more thing real quick. But I mean, Herschel, would you consider being a consumer of esports during this time?
Yeah, so not to get too into it, I play in a little Madden League, and when I'm not playing, I definitely watch all the other games. They stream them on YouTube. Shout out to thecofl.com. Yeah, the shit's fun. Like you just kind of get drawn into it, and essentially you think about it either like you are playing like, oh damn, that dude made this decision here or made that throw or some shit like that, or you just kind of have it's easier, it's less stressful than having your own vested interest while playing Madden. Some of these esports, like, we all love to, similarly to how we like to go out in the backyard and throw a football around or, play flag football or pretend to be fucking Randy Moss or some shit like that. It's the same thing in video games, in esports. So I definitely would be on board. I don't think it's going to have the same, intensity and competitiveness. But there's something there. Like, we'll watch a competition. Human beings love that shit. Like, we're starving for literally anything. Now, I will say I haven't watched any of the like 2K tournaments and shit ESPN had been putting on earlier. But I mean, that's a legitimate opportunity.
Yeah, I'm surprised because I thought ESPN was like, the main large company that was putting on esports. So, maybe, obviously there could be issues with how they congregate. Like, I know a lot of these esports players play together, even though that, they stream a lot of their stuff. But, I kind of find it interesting. Like, I would find it more interesting to follow one of these more strategic type games, or like maybe StarCraft or Dota, or maybe like these sort of like tower defense, or I mean, I don't even obviously I don't even know what I'm talking about because I don't watch the shit, but
I mean, there's Call of Duty tournaments. Like you name a competitive game and they got some shit for it, and they got sponsors. League of Legends, there's all kind of shit that's already set up.
You sponsor us, goddammit.
Yeah, for real. Even for like Fortnite and shit. Even for, I think the NBA teams even have all of them have an esports division where they sign on players to play 2K and shit.
Yeah, perhaps, man. What else you got, bruh?
All right, so to take it away from sports a little bit, to get back to like regular life shit and what we really should be doing during this coronavirus era. Somebody asked me today, oh man, I just got a notification or an email from my dentist office saying, it's time for my checkup. And they were like, yo, do you think I should go to the dentist? And to me, I was thinking, yeah, that's some kind of like regular maintenance. That's, you might still have tooth issues if you don't, get them cleaned or checked. But that raises the point of all kinds of other like normalcy shit that we do. So what do you think? And that is one of those instances where people are going to be close together. There's no real avoiding it. They already wear masks. They're essentially healthcare professionals. So they're at risk all the time already. I guess more risk with coronavirus being out here, but that's something that happens across the board. You've mentioned even with like your students and stuff talking about, oh man, I'm stressed because coronavirus. Yo, we're all dealing with this shit, man. This is not some shit that just is affecting a couple of people. So in those instances, I don't want to hear it. But what do you think?
I would say I would go. If the dentist is doing service, if there are any dentists doing service, we probably should have a dentist hop up on the pod to, I was thinking spit some game. Because we do know dentists, goddamn. But I think the question drives home a little bit more to just a little bit of an existential connotation. I think, people are just going to have to begin to grapple with how they prioritize certain things, I don't know. This is a tough question, man. You stumped me, Herschel, because I want to say that you should go, or your friend should go. Anyone should go. I'm speaking for myself. I don't know how I would respond to the coronavirus. I don't even know if I've had the coronavirus, right? But I feel like if I step outside and I take my ass to the dentist and I get dental service, I'll be all right. And every person has to think about that for themselves. We see these, because I said this, to some of the homies who visited me right before shit popped off. Man, we had the St. Patty's Day celebration planned out. Boy, we was about to get crazy. I mean, really not that crazy, but we was definitely about to. How should I
get
say
crazy?
we were planning on going on a trip, if you know what I mean. Taking a trip,
trippy.
Man, but I was telling the homies, I was like, information from the government is iffy. Information from the media is completely trash. Not completely false, but it's very low quality information. And I hate saying that because I'm basically feeding into what Trump has been preaching all these years. But if I'm being honest, man, after what I've seen with the coronavirus, he has a very solid point. The media is kind of suspect. So I was telling them everyone is going to have to sort of evaluate their world and information for themselves. Everyone is going to have to make that decision for themselves. Like, the government is going to come on the television and tell us kind of how to live our lives. And Trump has been very back offish. I was listening to the PBS NewsHour, of course, because they keep it popping.
Sponsoring RTBTH. Appreciate it.
The PBS is actually a public organization, so they don't do sponsorships. Herschel, all right. I do. I'm just playing.
But if they did,
they
would sponsor Real Talk.
They would be sponsoring Real Talk. Okay, yeah. But I was hearing a senator talk to one of the anchors, and they were saying how Americans don't really like the president to go on TV and say, "This is what you should do." I know we've given him a lot of shit for mishandling the coronavirus situation, but there is a certain aspect of the president coming on TV, like it drives home to being American. There is something inherently wrong about the president telling everyone to just stay at home. This is kind of what we need right now, So with that being said, people have to make this decision. Like, up to this point, we have been told to stay home, but I don't think that the government telling us to stay home is going to last much longer. I don't think it's going to work because there's people who are not going to stay home. I mean, we're already seeing it. People are opening up restaurants. So with regard to going to the dentist, I mean, you have to just sort of evaluate information. You have to take in the data and evaluate it for yourself. Everyone has to do that. And this is unfortunately something that we lack severely in this country, is the ability to combine a lot of pieces of information and integrate it into a solid conclusion or a bit of information or some kind of direction. Some people might be okay. A lot of people will be okay if they go to the dentist. Some people might not. Somebody might catch coronavirus and have one of the worst fights with an infectious disease that they've ever had in their lives, and maybe some of them won't make it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you that, these are just questions that people are just going to have to ask themselves literally every time you leave out the house. I mean, we kind of already do it. I don't know about you, but I personally hate wearing these masks. I don't think that it's effective or helpful. It makes it more difficult to breathe and hear people and understand people. But if it makes other people, feel more secure in what's happening and what's going on and get them back to regular society, cool. Whatever it really takes to get back to normalcy, I think is going to be a positive thing. But that's going to have to be questions like that, going to the dentist, or like I had to get an emissions test for my car and shit this past week, and I didn't even have to get out the car. Dude had like a whole regimen and shit was set up. I was like, yeah, pop the trunk, pop the hood, this, that, this. It was cool. I think for a lot of businesses and shit that we regularly interact with, we're going to find, we didn't have to come in here and shake hands and be in person and do all this stupid shit. It's going to be, a more permanent social distance between people. But some of the shit that's just unavoidable, we got to get over that shit. The Georgia governor, Brian Kemp, just announced that he is keeping in place the ban on, or not ban, but the restrictions on like bars and clubs and shit until like, I think it's May 31st, maybe into June or some shit. But even once it opens up, like people are going to have to get back comfortable and go into the club. Cause I mean, how are you going to date? How are you going to hook up with people? How are you going to figure out what that person looks like up under the mask without them taking it off and potentially getting everybody sick? You're just going to have to assume like, either they got it or they don't. Either I got it or I don't. Like it's both of those conversations that we're going to have with ourselves. So I think we're overall in the right direction. I think especially, to bring it back home to this conversation, sports and some type of normalcy will help us get back to it. Once we see more events, we see more things. I mean, even, now we see other people going out and drive. That first couple of days of shutdown was super shut down. The streets were dead as fuck. But now, people are out and about to an extent, if not to the parks or, doing things. So I think we're on the right path, but it's just going to take time.
Herschel, man, you just dropped some hot fire. You might as well just go ahead and end it there.
Sounds good.
This is Real Talk Beyond the Headlines.
Yo, appreciate y'all listening. We out.